Hi, this is Jack Wyant with credibleinformation.com. Today again we're at the Pasadena Playhouse where we've just seen their latest production, Sleepless in Seattle, the musical. And one of the stars of the show, Chandra Lee Schwartz, is here talking to me. Thank you
Hello.
very much.
Yeah. Very.
You've done a lot of musical theater. And what started you in this? Was it the acting or the singing?
Definitely the singing. I grew up singing. I grew up in San Diego. So no, I just kind of came into this by chance because I would put on little shows in the foyer of our house, and I would sing. They couldn't stop me from singing.
All right.
To Martin Gleason. Thank
Morning,
you,
man.
the other
Absolutely.
star of the show.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, man.
We were just talking to Chandra about how she got into this. Was it the singing or the acting? What about you? Now, I understand that you studied psychology, too.
I did. I studied psychology in college. I think I overheard you were saying about singing in the foyer. I mean, that was me, too.
That was you, too.
Grew up very suburbia, so, like, you know, singing as a kid, church choir, and then went to college and studied psychology only because that's what I found most interesting. I had no career aspirations whatsoever.
Well, there's a connection between
Yes.
acting and psychology,
Sure,
I think,
sure.
isn't there? But
Absolutely.
when was that moment when you decided to really go for it?
Well, it was a couple years out of school. I was in the corporate world, and I was miserable and lonely, fat, and like probably 30 pounds overweight. And I was just miserable, and I was like, you know what? I haven't done theater in a couple years. Maybe that's what's missing. So I started looking in the newspapers for community theaters. And I was like, maybe I'll do a show at night, meet a nice girl. It was really about meeting people. It wasn't about
Sure.
changing my career.
Sure.
And I auditioned for this big community theater in New Jersey, and I got the lead in West Side Story, and the rest is kind of history. I mean, that's a very short version of it, but 2 years later, or 3 years later, I was on the national tour of Phantoms, and that was because, you know, enough people were like, hey, you're a pretty good kid, and I was like, and then I just started getting curious about it, and I was like, well, maybe I am, and I started auditioning, and then
Putting yourself out
right,
there.
and then it's all about positive feedback. I mean, once you go and you audition, and someone says that's great, you're like, oh, well, then
Oh,
I'll do it
really?
again. Yeah, exactly. So that's
well, come
kind of
back.
what happened. So
And Chandra, when was that moment for you? When did it? You knew that that's what you wanted to do.
Right, so all through high school, I sang at different functions and things, at weddings and at churches and things like that, but I never put the acting and the singing and that together. My high school was pretty, how do I say it? Like a poor high school. It's a public school with no funds, no theater department or anything. And so I never had the opportunity to try it in high school, really. And then I went to community college after high school, not quite sure exactly what direction I wanted to go. And I auditioned for the musical, which was Pippin. And I got the role of the leading player in Pippin, and I was like, oh, exactly. And so once we started rehearsals and performances, I was like, oh, this is what I do.
Right.
Like, oh, like this is it.
It felt right.
It felt right, yeah. And so I applied to AMDA in New York, and I got in. The next year I went, and like Tim said, the rest is history.
totally.
Well, let's talk about this show. And I was talking to Chandra earlier about this. It's a musical based on a famous movie.
Right.
With two very big stars in it.
I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about.
And how do you go
people keep
about
saying that.
preparing for making this your own role?
Well,
how do you do that?
I
want both of you to
I did it
say-
very simply. I never watched the movie.
Uh-huh.
And when, I don't know if you've seen the movie, but
Of course.
gotcha. So I
Everyone's
just,
seen the
well,
movie.
I've never seen it. And
You haven't seen it?
I've never seen the movie.
Oh, I thought you watched
No,
it.
I've never seen it. And what happened was, this came up, I kind of retired from music theater when I moved here because I wanted to focus on other stuff. And then when this came up, and my representation was like, you know, I know we're not doing this, but this seems great. And I was like, absolutely, submit me. So I auditioned for it, and then I got the reading. So when the big production came around, I thought to myself, you know what? I got the part without knowing what Tom Hanks does, so let's just continue that ride.
Yeah.
And my whole life, I kind of
Don't
grew
mess
up.
with something
Right,
that
exactly,
works.
exactly. And especially when you can fall into that trap of, because if I watch something amazing, I mean, Tom Hanks is amazing. If I watch something amazing he's going to do, how am I not going to want to do that, right? So I just avoided it altogether. That's how I handled it. And, you know, it doesn't hurt that my whole life growing up, people are like, oh, you're like a young Tom Hanks. So I kind of just trusted that growing up, or trusted that now because of what, you know, people had told me. So I felt like, well, just go with that, you know, so.
And what about
As a musical theater performer, it's rare that you get to do something from the ground up. You know, I've replaced people in a lot of shows, or I've done like smaller shows from the ground up, or revivals, things like that. So it's like really rare that you get to be on the ground floor with the writers and the composer and lyricist and the writer, everyone there every day. And so I think what ended up happening was we were telling a story, and Sheldon Epps, our director, was very clear that we're telling the same story, but we're not trying to be the movie. And so that was kind of, he laid that rule out at the beginning, you know, like we're not trying to emulate this movie. And I think honestly, I just got caught up in the creation of it. And so it wasn't until we started having interviews and doing more press that I have had to kind of go, oh, or even leaving the theater, people go, oh, you were just like Meg Ryan. And I'm like, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's everyone else's, because we do well avoiding it, and then everyone reminds us of
so I really got sucked into the beauty of creating a new piece. And even things every day, our writer would change things and be like, oh, I thought this would be good for you, because he was writing it for me and for Tim and for the whole cast.
Let's follow up on that. I take it that you were both involved from the beginning as the play evolved. Is that correct?
Well, the play had a life before us. I think it had a few different composers at different times, and it's been kicked around for like 7 years
but
or
never
something
a production.
like that. Never a production, but maybe they had done other readings, and it's kind of been in the works. But for this incarnation with these composers, we both did the reading, and we both are doing.
And what was that process like of seeing it come together and gel as a?
I mean, as
a
Chandra
musical?
said, it's amazing. I mean, it's kind of why we do this, you know. I mean, it takes a very special thing, especially for Chandra and I. We both have replaced very iconic roles in the sense that you have to give people, you have to put your own little stamp on it, but what's more important is that you give the people what they expect, you know. When they go out and see Wicked, you know, it gets a little cookie cutter, same with Phantom, same with other big shows like Lion King and stuff. So what's great is with this is none of that exists. This is all your own.
Except for this little movie.
Right,
Sleepless
exactly.
in Seattle that, people have seen.
So, but it's nice that, you know, you just kind of, you know, and every once in a while, like Chandra said, they would say things like, well, I'm writing this for you, so what do you think?
Yeah.
Or, well, I'm writing this for you, so we'll just change the key. And it's like,
yeah, it's
that's
really
the
cool.
greatest thing in the entire world. Right. Gave me some
Well, I'm
tools.
impressed with both of you.
Thank you so much, man.
Terrific
Thank you.
singing. It's a great show. It's a lot of fun.
Great.
What are you working on in the future? After anything coming up after the show?
I don't know, what have you heard? No,
Comedy, obviously.
That's what I do, Chandra. It's what I do. No, I have. Actually, my agent just emailed me on Friday about some mentoring project that. I don't. I have to get details, but that might possibly be something I might do for a couple weeks down in Orange County, which would be really great. I love the idea of you know, mentoring kids and stuff. So that's a possibility, but I don't know.
How about you? Anything cooking?
Cooking. Well, I just started teaching. I went to AMDA in New York, and they have a campus here. And so before this all began, I started working with them, doing some alumni stuff and adjudicating for incoming students and teaching. I just started substitute teaching for the musical theater department. And so I'm definitely hoping to do a lot more of that. I had no idea I was going to like teaching, and I love it.
This is very interesting that both of you have come into that realm of being teachers and mentors. Very good.
Give back, right?
Yeah, that's
It's all
great.
about giving
Yeah,
back.
give
Great.
back. Also, like in this business, you know, it's like wanting to be on TV and film, wanting to kind of pursue that. It looking at that kind of world, coming in from a theater background is very overwhelming, you know, and you kind of have to find a way in. So while we're finding a way in, what I've found in the last 8 months since I've been here, how important it is to have a life that doesn't revolve around a job. To have a life. And so I've started building, what does that life look like? And teaching is not only a way to make money as an actor while you're not doing a gig, but it's also something fulfilling, like a mentor, something like that. So it's like building your world and building your life and making that full and rich so that you're not emotionally dependent on these jobs, I think is so important.
Good.
I think
Very
in this
good.
world, yeah.
Well, keep up the good work. It's a
Thanks.
great show.
Great.
You guys have fabulous voices. You have terrific ensemble of players in this.
Yeah,
and,
they're great.
thoroughly enjoyed it.
Great.
Thanks.
And whatever comes up in the future, the best of luck to both of you.
Great.
Thank you so
Thank you, man.
much.
Appreciate it.
Tim,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Yep.
Chandra, wonderful to meet you both.
You
Okay.
too.